It's a great pleasure talking to you, National Chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu. Thank you so much for talking to us on Channels Television.
Thank you, Sean. My pleasure.
It's a few days before this very crucial election. There's a lot of anticipation about this election. Interestingly, it's 20 years now since our return to democracy. So it's a very crucial election in every sense of it. How prepared is INEC?
We are prepared for the election. We have been all along prepared for the election. We have taken time to deliberately plan this election. We issued a timetable and schedule of activities way back on the 9th of January last year, over a year to the election. And we have been dutifully following the activities we have outlined.
So INEC has all the money needed for this election, or the money is budgeted for this election?
Well, we submitted a proposal to the executive for the sum of 189.2 billion. We went for the very first time in our elections to the National Assembly to defend the appropriation for the election. And the National Assembly appropriated exactly what the executive submitted to it. And what the executive submitted to the National Assembly was exactly what the Commission required. And I'm very happy to say that we have received every kobo for the election.
So we are good to go?
We are good to go.
There have been issues, and this is relating to the preparations of INEC, of course, and whether or not we are going to localize the production of some of the materials that will be used for this election. How local is the production of some of the materials for this election?
Well, there are issues that the Commission will be reluctant to go into in detail at the moment, particularly when it comes to sensitive materials, but we have not engaged any foreign company for the production of the sensitive materials. What we have done is to engage local Nigerian companies, but some have foreign technical partners. And we went to each of the countries where any of the Nigerian companies said it has a technical partner to inspect their facilities before we proceeded. We are very happy. The good news is that actually some of the sensitive materials have already started arriving in the country.
So INEC is saying that the military will be involved in this election?
No, the military will only be involved to the extent that the law allows. You know, Section 29, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act provides for the involvement of the military for moving materials for the election on the request of the Commission. It's part of the law.
Are you requesting them to help?
Not yet. Not yet, because first...
There are apprehension about the issues of insecurity around the elections. Are you aware of this?
We are aware of this because part of what we do as the Independent National Electoral Commission is also to do election violence mitigation exercises. And we appraise the security situation across all the states of the country, and we share information with the security agencies. But the details of how these potential areas of trouble can be mitigated is actually the responsibility of the security agencies. So I would not like to comment in depth about what the security agencies are doing, but you are right, we are concerned because elections can only be conducted in a secure, peaceful environment. But we'll continue to work with the security agencies to share information on how we can mitigate potential areas of violence so that we can conduct elections peacefully and seamlessly.
The answer to the question is, what is it going to be, yes or no, if INEC is ready for this election?
INEC is absolutely ready for this election, I've told you.
From your point of view, because you are the chair also in the areas, you dictate the tune in terms of what is other agencies are going to be doing, like security. From your own point of view, is security ready?
Well, I am confident based on the discussions we had with the Inspector General of Police and the assurances we received that they are ready. Remember, in election, INEC has its own responsibilities clearly cut out, and the security agencies have their responsibilities clearly cut out. But based on the interactions we have had so far and we are going to have with the security agencies, we are really confident of that.
Do you foresee any reason for postponement of this first election?
No.
Should it happen, or should there be a suggestion for it? What would you say?
No, I don't answer hypothetical questions, so...
I mean, it has happened before, and so that's the reason perhaps when is election...
It has happened before, but there is nothing at present to suggest that election is going to be postponed, and the Commission is not even thinking about postponement. Is that unlike 2015, where insecurity was confined to basically 3 states in the northeast, Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. This time around, for different reasons, insecurity is more widespread. We have identified 15 states where there are internally displaced persons. We have had a discussion with the RECs in the 15 states. We also consulted the stakeholders in those states. We developed the framework, publicly validated the framework for IDP voting, so we are good to go in that respect. My assurance to Nigerians is that every registered voter will be given an opportunity to vote, irrespective of circumstances beyond the control of the voter, like displacement, for instance, or even a physical challenge.
So clarify this for Nigerians so that they know. Are you using the same machines, the same smart card readers that were used in 2015, in 2019, or you've changed them?
No, we haven't changed the card readers. What we have done is to enhance them. We learned from the experience of the 2015 general elections, as well as the off-season elections we conducted in 195 constituencies. And we saw the deficiencies. We saw the areas of strength and weaknesses, and we have strengthened the card reader. Let me give you an example. Enhancing the smart card readers means in the area of software. First, increasing the processor so that it can give us a speedy turnaround time for voters at the polling units. Secondly, we have enhanced the SAM cards. The SAM cards in the smart card readers enable the card reader to have a handshake with the permanent voter cards. We have increased the memory, the SD cards of the smart card readers so that there will be greater capacity for them to store data. And at the same time, we have also increased the battery life of the smart card readers. And equally importantly, unlike 2015, we have now introduced a latch that locks the battery inside the smart card reader. And we did it for a reason. If the battery shifts, or if it's opened and tampered with, immediately the smart card reader will go blank. So this time around we have introduced a lock, and there is a seal also on the cover of the battery in the smart card reader. So if anything happens, then the tap must have been broken. If that happens, then it's an act of sabotage, not mistake. So we have learned from the experience of what happened in 2015 and all subsequent elections to improve the capacity and functionality of the card readers.
So the manufacturers have actually, they took them and they fixed them.
Well, when you talk about manufacturers, I think there is something that I need to clarify, and Nigerians should hear this. The smart card readers were designed by INEC. It wasn't designed by any foreign manufacturer.
Patented by INEC.
Yes.
Staff of INEC brought the idea up.
Brought the idea, enhanced, designed it, and it was merely fabricated outside the country for a reason that Nigerians understand. The capacity to fabricate is simply still not as high as we would like. And so the card reader was designed by the Commission, and that's why it can withstand heat at over 80 degrees centigrade. All done by staff of the Commission.
Are you saying now that under no circumstance are we going to use incident forms?
No, let me make this important clarification so that we understand what incident form means. It is related to the purpose or functionality of the card reader. The Commission deploys the card reader to achieve three basic objectives. One, to confirm. Second, to verify. And thirdly, to authenticate. The smart card reader on election day confirms that the card presented by the voter is issued by the Commission and not cloned, because the card reader can't read a card issued by any other person than INEC. The second purpose of the card reader is to actually confirm that the person who presents the PVC is the actual person on the register of voters. Once the card reads, the smart card reader reads the card, the information on the card pops up on the window of the smart card reader, and this is cross-checked against the manual register. So it's confirmed that the person is genuine, and the card is also genuine, issued by the Commission. However, the Commission takes a step further by authenticating the voters. Authentication means that at the point of registration, we captured all the 10 fingers, the biometrics of all registrants. And on election day, we would like to doubly confirm and authenticate that the person who presents the card is the actual owner of the card.
Chairman, tell us, how sane is the voters register that we have now? Because I know there are about 3 or 4 stages of cleaning up that has been done in 2015. But now, are you able to remove, because there are issues of underage voting, dead voters, and voters who have moved out, a lot of issues. Were you able to dust off the
Well,
register?
there are numerous layers for cleaning up the voters register. And let me start by saying also that with the introduction of the full biometric register of voters in 2010, the Commission no longer registers voters afresh with every general election. You know, that used to be the case. So in 2010, the Commission introduced the full biometric register of voters, updated in 2014 for the 2015 general elections, and then in 2017 and 2018 for the 2019 general elections. It has given us a register of 84 million voters, which is actually the largest database of citizens in Nigeria, the largest database of citizens in Africa, one of the largest in the world. Like everything we do in INEC, the voters register is work in progress. It's robust, we are confident in it, but it is by no means perfect. And that is why we also display the register for claims and objections in each of the 119,973 polling units nationwide, so that citizens can also help us to clean up the register. We have also gone out of our way to liaise with the National Population Commission at the official register of birth and death in Nigeria to give us statistics so that we can use the information to clean up the register. We have liaised with the Nigerian Immigration Service, and they have done a fantastic job in confiscating cards, whether they are TVCs or PVCs, from aliens who registered. Remember, the law says that only Nigerians are entitled to register and to vote in our elections. So we have taken steps.
So how many of those cards were confiscated?
They came in batches, but I think now we have well over 1,000. The last batch they submitted was well over 600.
Of aliens in our
aliens
register
who registered.
That have been discovered ahead of this election?
Yes, and we have removed those from the register. In fact, the Commission has a standing policy that each time the Nigerian Immigration Service provides evidence of non-Nigerians who register, we should automatically remove them, delete them, or null them from the voters register. And we have been doing so consistently. So once I receive a letter from the Comptroller of Nigerian Immigration Service, in almost all cases, they came with the cards, whether they're TVCs or PVCs. We have removed them from the register, but we went a step further. I led a team of national commissioners to meet the Comptroller General of Immigration Service, and they posted their men to the registration centers during the voter registration exercise, so that if there are aliens, and they know better, because they are better trained, better equipped to identify who are not Nigerians and who are Nigerians, we stop them once they are identified from registering. So yes, I must say that INEC has never claimed that the voter register is perfect, but it's robust, and there is a mechanism for cleaning up the register. And we'll continue to take further steps to ensure that we clean up the register, including what we did recently. We gave each political party, each of the 91 political parties in Nigeria, a complete copy of the National Register of Voters. The idea is that political parties, the media, civil society organizations, citizens will help the Commission to continue to clean up the register. We are confident that the register is robust. It has, for the first time, the full biometrics of citizens, complete with their pictures, dates of birth, and other personal details. But we'll continue to clean up the register.
Chairman, you are saying that it's going to be extremely difficult for underage voters to be on our register. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. I'm also saying this. In 2019, working jointly with the security agencies, we'll go beyond just cleaning up the register of underage persons or ineligible registrants, because it's not just underage persons that are ineligible. There are other categories of ineligible registrants, like non-Nigerians. We'll continue to work with the security agencies, including apprehending persons who turn up at polling units with cards while they're underaged. We'll deal with this matter in 2019, believe me, sure. If anybody turns up at the polling units with a card and the person is clearly ineligible to vote in our elections, such a person will be arrested. And there is a penalty, 12 months in prison or 500,000 naira fine, or both. And we'll enforce it. For ineligibility or illegal possession of a PVC or ineligibility for registration
What about
in the first
someone
instance.
who buys voter cards?
It's the same thing. If you buy and you want to use the voter cards, you're also subject to that provision of the law in terms of discipline. But I must also say this, Sean, about the 2019 general elections in relation to the register. We learned that some people are going around systematically inducing voters, asking them to produce their PVCs and copying the voter identification numbers on the PVCs. We don't know what they want to use that for, but I think they are being scammed simply because we have given the register of voters to all political parties in Nigeria, and the register contains the voter identification numbers. Each permanent voter card has a VIN number. VIN means voter identification number. So for some of the political actors who go around inducing voters to copy the numbers, they already have the entire database of the entire register of voters. So they don't have to go down that road to copy voter identification numbers for that purpose. But we have given them the registers, including the voter identification numbers, believing that our system is so robust that you cannot use the voter identification numbers to compromise the smart card reader on election day. It's impossible. So we have given them the information. As actually, we are surprised that they are going around inducing people.
Or if anybody buys a voter card of a voter, can the person use it to vote in this election?
No, the person can't use it.
For a number,
you can't for a number of reasons. Number one, you can only vote once. Two, the information on the smart card reader, which has a handshake with the PVC, cannot read a card that belongs to another person when it is presented on election day. It's useless for instance, for Mahmood Yakubu to carry Seun Okimbaloye's card to go and vote on election day. It just wouldn't happen. That's why, in fact, in 2015, some of those who thought that they could use other people's cards to vote found out that they couldn't. And to our great surprise, only about 50% of the registered voters voted in the 2015 general elections, which was the most keenly contested election in the history of the country. Because of the safeguard we introduced, I think many people didn't think that the PVC was going to work with the smart card reader. So being in possession of somebody else's card doesn't help you on election day at all.
So you go ahead.
On that. We'll go ahead in
with the complaints for some political parties saying, well, this is, they wouldn't want it. Would you perhaps, have you perhaps considered reviewing your guideline in this direction?
No, we have already published the guidelines. For the general elections in 2019, there is no possibility for review. But if anybody is complaining about this, why now? We have conducted 194 elections using that. Since Bielsa 193, we haven't had any complaints. And the elections produce different outcomes for different political parties. So the system is truly robust.
I want to ask you about some of the states with some controversy about the governorship election, where they have cases, and I mentioned Rivers State, Zamfara State, and I think those are majorly, and Ogun State. What is the situation regarding those three states and the candidates there?
Well, I don't know what the controversy you are talking about.
Rivers State, for example.
No, first let's talk about Ogun State. As far as the commission is concerned, there is no controversy in any political party about the candidature. You may be referring to
the PDP candidates?
The PDP candidates. All the decisions of the commission are based on the provisions of our laws. So there is a faction of the PDP in Ogun State that produced the governorship candidate, and the subsisting court orders are on the side of that faction, and we have recognized that. But when we publish the list, we said by court order. If tomorrow a superior court upturns the judgment of the lower court, we'll obey the judgment of court. In the case of Rivers, it's the same thing. There is a judgment of court saying that a particular party cannot field candidates in the election. The party can participate and it cannot field candidates. So on the 17th of January, when we published the list of presidential and National Assembly candidates for the election, the name of that party in Rivers was not even on the final list of candidates by court order. So we have always obeyed the orders of court.
Should the order says otherwise, shortly before the election, you will obey?
Well, we are operating on the basis of the orders as they exist. We are not in the business of speculating what will happen tomorrow.
On the day of election, I mean, the knowledge that we have is that the activity on the machines and the technology used by INEC has a back end at the headquarters. Is that true?
Well, for everything we do, there has to be a back end. But if you are talking about back end in terms of the places where results are transmitted, I want to make this important clarification. We'll transmit results in 2019 as prescribed by the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, which is essentially manual. It involves the collation and transmission of results physically from one stage to another, and there are prescribed forms. But we are going to pilot the electronic transmission, collation and transmission of results, but will not be used for the purpose of making declaration of winners in the election.
Why?
The second dimension is, we'll come back to that later. The second dimension of that is some people have been asking the commission that they want our back-end system to be opened up, particularly for the media and civil society organizations to have access to our collation center. The collation center for the presidential election will be at the International Conference Center in Abuja. And the commission has taken the decision to open up the situation room to all accredited persons who wish to visit during the collation process. So we're going to make that open. As for the reason why we are not transmitting electronically, recall that we had some discussions with the Nigerian Communications Commission. And through the Communications Commission, we had meetings with the telecom service providers, the telcos. And we have identified blind spots in Nigeria that are not covered by any of the networks. How do you effectively transmit results from those blind spots? In order to address the issue of the blind spots, we also had a meeting with the Nigerian Communications Satellite. We have not concluded our discussions with the Nigerian Communications Satellite in that respect. There are twin issues. The first one is communication. With several blind spots, how do you communicate? Secondly, the percentage of the country that is covered by 2G, let alone 3G or 4G network, and we have no 5G in Nigeria, is really small. How do you, in addition to sending results from the polling units, raw results meaning figures, which is just like sending a text message, and also sending copies of the EC8A, because sending figures is different from sending image. So we have challenge in the area of communication. But secondly, and equally importantly, we have a challenge in the area of security, particularly in this era of cyber insecurity. I think we need to do a lot more before we then deploy this technology for the purpose of transmitting results nationwide. Recall also the experiences of other countries that deployed that technology. Kenya, for instance, it was a very big challenge. I think we need to study that. I want to assure Nigerians that technology has come to stay. See what we have done, and probably Nigerians have not appreciated it. One, we have the biometric voters register. As I told you, since 2010, we have been updating. We are now able to accredit voters electronically using the PVCs and the smart card readers. Next is that we have to now develop a system for electronic balloting and subsequently electronic transmission of results. The four processes have to be worked out carefully for the Commission to achieve the transmission of results electronically. We are 50% on that route. So we are confident that the 2023 elections will actually be the elections of technology.
And since you touched on the collation center on the election day, will Madam Amina Zakari still be the chair of the collation center?
But what is a collation center?
No, I mean, that's the deployment, that's the assignment you have.
Sean, this interview is very interesting in the sense that we converted this office into a mini studio. Who helped you to convert this office into a mini studio? The people who handle the light, who set up the cameras. But they are not involved in the conversation that you and I are having at all. So the person who is responsible for the administration of the collation center, water, electricity, and things like that, has nothing to do with the collation processes, Sean. Collation, if I may say this, Sean, is a constitutional issue. collation of result is a constitutional issue. The Constitution of Nigeria is very clear. There is the Chief Electoral Commissioner of the Federation, and also the returning officer in the presidential election. And who is that person? Constitutionally, is the chairman of INEC. I'm therefore going to head the collation secretariat, which is distinct from the collation center, which is the International Conference Center. And I want to assure Nigerians that I'm not going to share that responsibility with any person or authority.
So Madam Amina Zakari's role and the collation will not be impactful?
She has nothing to do with collation of results and will not be involved in the collation of results.
Why is it difficult for the chairman to redeploy her?
Well, I don't know what you mean, understand what you mean by redeployment.
Because if there are agitations about her handling that bit, the question that a lot of people had asked is that to clear the air, why not simply just redeploy her? Since she's not the only national commissioner.
I have described the processes. It wouldn't be good for the commission to be deploying officials on the basis of partisan considerations. Because tomorrow, for partisan consideration, they may ask for the deployment of another commissioner. Are we going to keep deploying our commissioners simply because of partisan considerations? Election begins and ends with the credibility of the election managers. And I want to give assurance to Nigerians that this electoral commission will not compromise on the processes. And I am responsible for the collation of results. I will not share that responsibility with any other person or authority in the Federation of Nigeria.
So you will be responsible
I am.
For the integrity of this election?
That is what the Constitution says.
Are you assuring Nigerians that this election will be free and fair?
I am assuring Nigerians, as far as the roles and responsibilities of the Commission are concerned, we are assuring Nigerians that the 2019 general elections will be free, fair, and credible.
It's a pleasure talking to you, and I want to wish the Commission the very best in this election. It's a crucial and a critical one for the nation. Thank you so much, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, for talking to us on Channels Television.
Thank you. Thank you, Sho. All the best. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Great.